It's May 8th, 1999. Sheila and her 19-year-old daughter, Candace Kaiser, had plans to go look at properties with Candace's boyfriend, 20-year-old David Killer. However, they didn't show up or even call Sheila. This was unusual, and the mom Sheila became concerned, to the point that she decided to go and check on the couple herself. The couple and their 2-year-old daughter, Kayla, stayed at an RV home at Branching Pines, Fort Mitchell, Alabama. After she arrived, Sheila went to the front door and started knocking. But of course, there was no answer, so she decided to peek in one of the windows when she noticed their child Kayla sitting alone, unattended. At this point, Sheila knew something was wrong, so she climbed in to make a gruesome discovery. Both Candace and David were killed. Candace had been shot and murdered in the bedroom next to her daughter Kayla, who probably sat there for hours after her mother's death, while David was also murdered near the entrance of the trailer. Devastated, Sheila immediately grabbed her granddaughter and ran out the door for help. The murder seemed random and the motive was unclear, since the couple had no enemies and lived a normal life. David was a plumber and Candace was a stay-at-home mom, both working to support their daughter. Candace's family believed that David was shot first, which made Candace hurry to the bedroom and hide her daughter Kayla from the cold-blooded killer. The authorities didn't really look into the murders or investigate the crime scene properly before they jumped to the conclusion that it was a murder, even though there was no gun at the crime scene, which quickly ruled out this possibility. And if this wasn't enough proof that something was suspicious about this investigation, cigarette butts and empty beer bottles that did not belong to either of the victims were found outside their trailer. But till this day, for more than 2 decades after the murders, it was never confirmed if the authorities ever tested them for DNA. Candace's family also notified the police that not long before the couple were murdered, David reported that someone had stolen heavy equipment from his job site. Unfortunately, the police would go on to neglect this step too, saying that if David had already notified the authorities about the stolen items, then the thief was probably behind bars by the time of the murder. This case is undoubtedly one of the most frustrating cases I've come across. From the tons of evidence the indolent police just sat on, to the countless tips Candace's family tried to help police with, over the past 26 years it has become clear that for some unknown and probably dark reason, the police weren't willing to put any effort into finding out who was behind these murders. On the morning of 6 January 1979, in the Geylang Bahru area of Geylang, Singapore, the 10 parents are starting their usual day. At 6:35 a.m., the 2 parents left their flat to transport students to school in their minibus, which they worked on together for extra income. At their flat, they left their 4 children sleeping, the children aged between 5 and 10 years old. Their mother usually wakes them up around 7 a.m. so they can get ready for school too. On this particular day, she called them 3 times, but received no response. When no one picked up, the mom called their neighbor to knock on the door and wake them up, but no one answered. The neighbor didn't think much of it and just went back home. At 10 a.m., the 10 parents finally came back home, thinking that the children were already out by now, when they found their 4 children murdered and piled on top of each other in their bathtub. The scene was very disturbing. Each child is said to have at least 20 wounds, with the oldest almost severed. When the police arrived at the scene, it quickly became evident that the killer was someone close to the family, as there wasn't any sign of forced entry, suggesting that the children willingly opened the door to let the killer in. The murder was planned, as the killer didn't leave any evidence behind, including the murder weapon, which police will later discover that it was a kitchen knife that was taken from the Tan's family kitchen, which would make anyone ask, why would the killer go unarmed to a place unless he knew for sure that he wouldn't need to defend himself, and he knew exactly where the weapons he would use were. The eldest kid fought with the murderer, as strands of hair were found in his hands. However, due to the forensic limitations in the 80s, the hair was never tested. 2 weeks after the murder, the 10 parents received a card for the Chinese New Year. The card depicted happy children, and in conclusion it stated, "Now you can have no more offspring. Ha ha ha." The reason this sinister card was relevant to our case is because the writer addressed the parents by their nicknames, and it was clear that he even knew that the mother underwent sterilization after her last child. If there was any doubt that the murders were just random, this card completely eliminated it. Now, although the case is still unsolved, there are many theories of who the killer may be, with the most popular one being that the mom's brother is actually the killer and the parents themselves knew it. I came across the theory when I read a comment from from someone on Reddit whose mother grew up in this area of Singapore. Everyone in the area knows it was their uncle who murdered the kids. Their parents were supposed to buy some local lottery tickets for the uncle. When the number the uncle picked came up as a winning, he went over to the Tans to collect his money, but he was told that they had forgotten to buy the lottery tickets for him. He was angry and didn't believe them, and when the Tans bought the mini school buses, it confirmed that they had kept his winnings to themselves. So he murdered their kids as a revenge to end their bloodline, as he knew Mrs. Tan had sterilization done. In East Asian culture, not having an offspring to continue your bloodline is a family shame. The uncle knew the kids would open the door for him when he visits, like they often do. As for why Mr. and Mrs. Tan would not report the uncle, apparently they were involved in activities, and the uncle himself was in a street gang. If the Tans were to report the uncle to the police, he might rat them out and they would get arrested. No neighbors would report the uncle for fears of being a target of a gang, which explains why no one is willing to provide any information to the police. And also the granny so happened to be washing her hair. The granny the commenter mentioned in his last sentence refers to a woman who would have normally noticed someone entering the family's home, as she usually sat out in the hallway in the morning, but said that she was busy washing her hair on the morning of the murder, and as such didn't see anything. It's mentioned that after the tragic murders, the Tan parents moved away, with the mother giving birth to 2 more children after she reversed the sterilization. In a quiet Tokyo suburb lived a family of 4. The father Mikio Miyazawa, his wife Yasuko, their 8-year-old daughter Nina, and their youngest son 6-year-old Rei. By December 2000, the area the Miyazawa family lived in was earmarked for redevelopment, which was why the family was one of only 4 homes left in the isolated neighborhood. Around 11:30 p.m. on the night of December 30th, and while most of the family were sleeping, with Mikio being the only one awake and working on his computer, a man in dark clothes walked around the Miyazawa family home. The intruder then climbed and reached the unlocked second floor bathroom window. Once he was inside the house, he approached the closest bedroom to the bathroom he entered through, which was 6-year-old Rei's bedroom. Without showing any mercy, the intruder then strangled him to death. At this same time, Mikio, who was downstairs on his computer, heard a disturbance coming from Rei's bedroom, which made him rush upstairs towards the sound and fight the intruder. Mikio was able to deeply cut the killer's right hand, but sadly the killer then took out a sashimi knife and stabbed Mikio multiple times in the head, chest, and arms, leaving a fragment of the sashimi knife blade lodged in his skull. After stabbing the father to death, the killer then finally went to the attic to find both Yasuko and her daughter Nina sleeping. He stabbed them with his now broken sashimi knife first, then he went to the kitchen to swap it with a kitchen knife. During the killer's absence, both the mother and her daughter tried to run away. However, they were caught and eventually killed. The killer's attack on them was described as extremely violent, with injuries indicating that they were stabbed even after death. Nina was found to be missing teeth, which indicated that she was not only stabbed but beaten as well. Due to the severe and focused violence against the female family members compared to the father, it was then speculated by detectives that the killer may have harbored a deep hatred or anger towards women. Here is when the case started to get even creepier. After the whole family had been murdered, the killer decided to hang around the house for at least 2 hours after committing the murders, during which he went to the kitchen, ate 4 ice cream cups, and drank barley tea, leaving his saliva and fingerprints on the cups. He then found a first aid kit and used it to treat his right arm, and then left the bloodied bandages behind. He also went to the bathroom and left without flushing. Nearly 2 hours after breaking in, the killer used the family's computer and searched the website of a local theater company. Sometime during his stay, it was said that he took a nap on the family's couch. The next morning, around 10:30 a.m., Yasuko's mother, who lived next door, went to the family's home to check on them after her calls went unanswered. She quickly made the gruesome discovery when she found her son's body at the bottom of the stairs before she reported her findings to the police. After the police had arrived at the scene, they were greeted with a massive amount of evidence. As said, the killer left a blood sample on the kit he used, his DNA, fingerprints, and even his excrement all over the house. He also removed and left his jacket, scarf, and the hat. He also left a waist pack with highlighters in it, 2 handkerchiefs, a pair of black gloves, and finally both murder weapons. The sashimi knife and the kitchen knife were also left behind. Shockingly, despite the checking of over 5 million fingerprints and over 1.3 million DNA comparisons by 2020, no match was found. His DNA did not match any existing records in the Japanese criminal databases, suggesting that the killer was a drifter or not a known criminal within the Japanese system. To further confirm that the killer didn't reside in Japan and wasn't a Japanese national, DNA analysis of his blood suggested that the killer has a mixed heritage. heritage, a parental line of East Asian descent, and a maternal line of European descent. Using the footprints they found at the scene, the authorities knew that the killer was wearing Slazenger Panther athletic shoes, 27.5 centimeters in size. This discovery, alongside the clothing left behind, allowed the police to create a clear composite of what the killer may have looked like that night. The police believed that the killer was 5'6" or 7. Inside the waist bag, they found small amounts of sand, and when the composition of the sand was analyzed, it turned out to be all the way from the Mojave Desert in California, which only complicated the investigation and made the police clueless about where this killer is really from. Using all the evidence they found, Tokyo police believed that the killer was between 15 and 22 years old, leaning more towards the lower end of the scale due to the highlighter pen ink which was found in his waist bag. Till this day, all we have against the cold-blooded killer are only theories, with the most prominent one being that the killer was somehow linked to the US military. The theory was based on the sand found in the waist bag. It's believed that the sand may have been picked up from the Edwards Air Base, which is located in the Mojave Desert, where the sand originated from. It's said that later, at the time of the murder, the killer was moved to the nearby Yokota base before he left Japan and never returned. What makes this case really disturbing and downright baffling is, although the killer was anything but careful, each discovery made by the Tokyo police just complicated this seemingly simple case even more, as if the killer left most of the evidence just to send the investigators down the wrong path. It's the night of April 15th, 2017. An off-campus college party is active in Arcata, California. Kyle Zollner is on his way to pick up his girlfriend, Leila Ortega, from the party. When he got there, Leila told him she believes someone has stolen her phone. She thinks it's David Lawson. Together they go to confront him, and as expected, their conversation got heated up, and eventually Kyle and David got into a fight on the ground, with Kyle on the losing end. After they had finally been separated, David was blinded by mace and stabbed in his chest. The incident was reported, and as they were waiting for the ambulance, Leila, who started this chaos, was overheard saying, "I hope that N-word dies." Many of David's friends said that the police stole the ambulance from taking David to the hospital, which was 1 mile away, with the police's excuse being that they were trying to control the crowd. Sadly, by the time they got to the hospital, David lost a lot of blood, and the doctors were unable to save him. Weirdly enough, no one in the party saw who was the stabber, but regardless, Kyle was arrested shortly after and was sensibly considered the prime suspect. However, things would take an odd turn because Kyle was only questioned for 15 minutes, during which the police discovered he owned a knife kit as he worked as a chef, and although a large butcher knife was found under a bush near where David had fallen, police surprisingly allowed his girlfriend to take the kit home and didn't collect it as evidence until a week later. To make matters even worse, they discovered one of the knives was missing from the kit. At this point, it became evident that the police station responsible was completely incapable of solving this case. That's when a retired FBI agent volunteered his time to help with the investigation. He suggested having the tool marks on the knife examined to see if the knife could be matched to the set that Kyle worked with. After almost all of his suggestions were ignored, he walked away, as it didn't seem as if the authorities wanted to prosecute this case. In a website made by David's mom, she said, "There have been a series of cover-ups, 3 different chiefs of police, botched investigations, and clear examples of systemic racism, nepotism, and conflicts of interest by both the city of Arcata and the Humboldt County DA's office. The National Police Foundation investigated the handling of my son's murder and published its findings in a 67-page report in which they found gross incompetence and mishandling by the first responders." 2 years after the murder, forensic analysts reported that Kyle's DNA was found on the murder knife. However, the grand jury refused to charge Kyle with anything, and in 2022, Kyle was on the verge of being awarded over $750,000 in compensatory and punitive damages, as the court found out that a former Arcata police detective tried to fabricate a report about an eyewitness seeing Kyle stabbing David. But just days later, this verdict was rejected. Whether this is simply incompetence or there is an agenda to make sure Kyle never stands trial for the murder of David, unfortunately, in both cases, David's family are left with no answers.
Yo, where are we going? No, this is Are you kidding me? You better not take me anywhere I don't want to go. I want to go into the city. Jeez. Yo, we're not going into the city, are we? No, we're not. Then where these roads going to?
50th Street.
50th Street. Are you sure?
Absolutely.
The woman who spoke in this audio recording is Amber Tuccaro, a 20-year-old Canadian First Nations woman from Fort McMurray, Alberta. On August 18, 2010, she flew from Alberta to Edmonton International Airport with her 1-year-old son and a female friend for a short vacation. She booked a motel there, and on the first night of the vacation, she decided to go on a trip and explore the city by herself. Apparently, on her trip, Amber took a ride with an unknown man. While she was in the stranger's vehicle, she received a phone call from her incarcerated brother. The call captured a 17-minute conversation, during which she was obviously worried as she questioned the unknown man about their location, saying, "You better not be taking me anywhere, I don't want to go." This was the last time anyone heard from Amber. The authorities would go on to handle this case in the worst possible way. 24 hours after Amber's trip, her friend at the motel reported Amber's sudden disappearance to the police. However, the police wouldn't take her disappearance seriously at all. For a whole month, Amber's mother tried to pressure the cops to find her daughter, or even consider putting Amber on the missing persons list, but they ignored her and told her that she was probably just out partying. This conclusion the police came to was based on a series of unconfirmed and anonymous sightings in Edmonton. This wasted month of investigation decreased all the chances of them finding Amber. The authorities' negligence would continue for 2 entire years, during which police accidentally destroyed a suitcase containing Amber's belongings from the hotel. They also didn't release her disturbing call with her brother until August 28, 2012, and on September 1st, 2012, a group of horseback riders discovered Amber's remains in a wooded area in Loddick County. The man in the recording, who Amber was last seen in his vehicle, remains unidentified. A few women claim to know who the man was, with all of them accusing the same man. Strangely, the authorities said they've looked into him, but he wasn't declared a person of interest. Till this day, family members, especially Amber's mom, believe the authorities didn't take this case seriously due to racism and bias against the indigenous woman. It's the night of November 28, 2012. 26-year-old Emma Filipoff is walking in front of the Empress Hotel in Victoria, Canada. Dennis Quay, an old acquaintance of hers, just noticed her. Emma didn't look okay. She was barefoot and kept looking around, so he decided to approach and check on her. And after talking with her for some time, she seemed visibly paranoid, which made Dennis become concerned for her well-being and called 911 before he left. Soon after, the police arrived. Before they started asking Emma where she was going barefoot, she responded saying she was working through some things and was going for a walk. Then they asked if she was feeling depressed or if she felt like she could do something to herself or other people. Her answer was no, and although her behavior was far from normal, the police strangely decided to let her go, not knowing that they just made a huge mistake, because on the same night Emma would vanish, and for more than 13 years she stays missing up until this day. Her mom, Shelley Filipoff, felt like the police were partly responsible for her daughter's disappearance, and she may not be wrong, because when looking into the last couple of days before her disappearance, it's not hard to tell that something deeply wrong was in play. Emma had been living in Victoria for nearly a year before she disappeared. During this time, she lived a very unstable life, moving between friends, a hostel-style hotel, and finally the Sandy Merriman Women's Shelter. Her family, on the other hand, lived in Ontario, another province, and didn't really know anything about her unstable lifestyle. See, Emma wasn't close to her family and didn't usually call them, but out of nowhere, exactly 4 days before her disappearance, she called her mom Shelley in the middle of the night. She was in tears, asking if she could come back home. Her mom replied saying she can always come back home. These calls continued for the next 4 days, and on the final call, which was on the day she went missing, Emma said she didn't know if she could face Shelley and tell her that she was living in a shelter the whole time. At the end of the call, Emma's tone shifted, asking her mother not to come or try to bring her home. Despite Emma's request, Shelley arrived at Victoria on the evening of the 28th. Unfortunately, by that time, Emma was nowhere to be found. After knowing about the calls, police started tracking down her last movements. That's when they found this CCTV footage from the YMCA at Victoria, recorded 5 days before her disappearance. She was there to take out a membership, but what was weird was her exiting then re-entering the building for 6 times, as if something or someone was out there waiting for her to leave. She was also recorded by the security cameras at a local 7-Eleven, which she visited 2 times on the 28th. The first time was in the morning money to buy a prepaid credit card, and the second one was to buy her first ever cell phone. She made these two 7-Eleven visits before she went missing. Till this day, there are countless possibilities to what could have happened to her and whether she's even alive or not. With these possibilities came many tips. However, the authorities may have mishandled the tips, just like they mishandled questioning her right before she vanished. Apparently, Emma had a stalker, not a random one, but someone who actually admitted he stalked her. Julian Yu, who first met Emma back in her home province, Ontario, in the summer of 2011. Julian showed interest in Emma, but Emma made it clear to him that she didn't have the same feelings. Regardless, he still went to the extent of calling her family. Even after she moved provinces, he followed her to Victoria and even met her on the street. However, Julian insists that it was all just a coincidence. The police wanted to make sure, so they gave him a polygraph test which showed he wasn't lying and cleared his name. Even after clearing Julian's name, there was still another person of interest. Remember the prepaid card Emma bought before she went missing? 1 week after her disappearance, the card was used to buy cigarettes. When the authorities found the guy who used it and asked about where he found it, he told them that he was an alcoholic and he forgot where it was found. But if he would have to guess, it was on the side of the road near the Juan de Fuca Community Center, which is around 12 miles away from the Empress Hotel where she was last seen. The final clue police received was surveillance footage from a Vancouver store, which captured a man with a torn-off poster in his hand. The poster was Emma's. The store owner said the man was angry and said that Emma was his girlfriend. Unfortunately, this man remains unidentified.